time for another episode of Simply State Odds and Ends. I'm here on my car day. I'm actually by Lake Michigan. We'll probably go walk around a little bit around Lake Michigan towards the end of the show. I know it's been about a week since I made my last episode, but I've just been really busy. For those who follow the series, after season 4 ended, I decided to start doing well, it was a really long, like probably about 15 years ago that I would do what's called odds and ends, so the reminders and tidbit pieces to follow up on threads from previous shows. But if you hadn't watched the whole Thought Project series and then the other Simply Stage shows, this probably won't make sense to you. I'm gonna change that. Anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and finish up my makeup here and then get into the show. I love Tom Petty. I'm so sad he's gone. I mean, I'm happy he was alive, but I'm sad he's gone. It's like my one truly afraid day this week, and I was thinking of doing mostly errands, but oh well. It's just how it goes. So, we'll turn the ad off and just be quiet for a little bit before I get started. A lot happened over the past week or so since I had hit the last show out on Saturday, so and Simply Yoga with Deborah is on break right now on OnlyFans. There might be a few shows of it on YouTube for people to watch for free, but not like a lot. Like once it returns again, which will be pretty soon, you're gonna want to watch it on OnlyFans. Like you're gonna subscribe for that. So let me see. It's funny, some episodes get like 100 or so viewers like right away, and then others get viewers like later. Like I had one episode that only had like 40 viewers, and then it had like 700 a year later. Like it's kind of funny how time and circumstance like change views and what people want to see or even hear about later. So, because like I could make an episode a day and people could be really excited about it and then not care about very much compared to another episode that's become super salient later due to events changing. I'm usually way in advance of topics that people would even think of. And it is because I take time to really research things and get it right, but that's just me. So I hope you're all doing well today. So thank you for joining in on this Friday here in the United States of America. It looks like there's like a little bit of a delay on the feed. So I'll try to account for that as I'm like doing the show. It's kind of tricky. Let's see, I'm gonna take all this off because it's actually like in the 60s, almost 70s today up in northern Michigan, so it wasn't like there's actually people sitting around outside at the beach and mini beach high. I'm sure there's probably people who went to some of the park beaches, like the bigger ones, today. Even with as far north as it is. And then I'm going to go ahead and turn off the car and like save some gasolina because that's the right thing to do. But yeah, gas price is still pretty high in the US. We're still around $4 up here, over $4. That's still pretty high in my opinion. For those of you who live down the DC area, like, so on it this morning. I know you know Ann Stone really loves Donald Trump, like has always loved Donald Trump. Everyone thinks she's brainwashed. I'm actually convinced that she goes to the American Church tax reform meetings, or used to. She was talking about she's the Women's Museum. I had to tell you something about her. She actually was exposed like over 20 years ago as being part of the KGB. So if you ever look at her feed on Facebook, if you know where you're like, this woman is just so nuts. It constantly seems like she's like trying to piss everyone off. Well, she is. She's old KGB. And it was just funny to me because like some of the guys got on her page today who were actually from some of the more relevant, like actual Republican organizations were telling her she was nuts. And I finally just got on there and I said, this person is a psychotic. It's a goddamn psychotic. And every day it says something else crazy. And you gaslights the whole party, gaslights everyone as part of the tax reform groups, gaslights anybody who's into like limited government or even just government reform, good government. You don't have to be a Republican or even a conservative, you just want that. And, it's like, I think there's really nothing to do at best with this person except to, whenever she goes off and makes all these ridiculous comments, go ahead and just start reporting her to APS in Virginia or even Washington, D.C. They have really nice dementia wards with locked doors in Virginia that they could send her to. And, we could just stop having these ridiculous conversations. Like, she has made so many hurtful, weird statements. Like, she tried to claim that women in this country want to defend the Taliban and be raped at one point because we didn't want to support Donald Trump. Like, and she's old KGB. So, I mean, it's kind of, part of the reason I make the show is that people are informed on what they're actually hearing, Like, it's really easy to say, oh, this person is just crazy. It's kind of dangerous to do that if the person's actually KGB. Like, if they're actually, like, what's part of the FSB of Russia today, it's like, because they could get somebody weird after you. Or to even just laugh at them. Like, you'd be laughing at somebody who's actually considered to be a military leader in Russia. Maybe you can do, but I knew a lot of women that, like, 20 years ago, one of my mom's errors, when she was still going through some things, trying to get some stuff straightened out in her life with it, she didn't know. She didn't know. So, it's much better to come at the angle of, like, this person is just a goddamn fucking psychotic. And let's just start reporting it to APS, it's just a nasty old woman that works for the KGB, and, she's probably into fucking kids, too, probably sells those on Sundays to pay for her big mansion. Somebody was like, hi, bye, thank you. So we're gonna get into, but anyway, so that's for those of you who know Ann Stone down in Washington, D.C. are like, what the hell are we supposed to do with this thing? Because ATR never really got it. It's a tax coalition group, it's Grover Norquist group, like, they're not gonna, maybe people report her all the time to APS, I don't know, but that would be the way to start with that one, for the weird, crazy, like, Bolshevik gaslight statements that she makes all the time. That's what I would do. That's what you probably should do. So, I decided a long time ago, good idea to just write them off as nuts. Maybe yourself, but not publicly, because they can kind of wheel around on you on that, They'll get somebody after you to be like, oh no, they're like really important. Whatever. Not that important in the U.S., so. Anyway, so, but it went truly free day this week where I've spent, like, partly doing a bunch of errands and taking care of stuff already. I'm busy with actual other stuff that I have to do, other days a week, but. So, episode 24, season 5. It's important to remember that some of the reason I make this show is just to remind people to know that, like, I'm not in your cult groups. Like, I'm not in Al-Anon, I'm not in I'm not in AA, and I'm not in religious cults. And there seems to be a problem just generally in this country with way too many people that are in gangs that are tied to cult groups, and the cults turn out to be part of the Russian FSB or Chinese CCP or, like, Russian GRU. So there's just a cover for Russian, Chinese, like, military groups. So it's important to understand that that's going on. So that's why I'm always over here like, I'm not in your cult today, reminding you I don't follow the rules of AA, Al-Anon, or NA, and I don't care, and I am not in your church, or your synagogue, or your mosque. Like the rest of us, this is a transnational country. You got to learn how to get along with everybody else because they don't follow your weird rules or weird way of life. I mean, I do know people who've actually left the country. Like there was Seton Motley that I met years ago. He left the U.S. because he got tired of it. It's like too many freaking weirdo cults and crazy people and bad governance as a result. And I think, yeah. So, but I just remind people because I like left the PCUSA and some of these other groups behind, and even the PC and the rest of it, and decided to live my own life. But I'm not a part of the cult groups. And I don't belong to like John Sly's like mega crazy weirdo culture. He's like stolen and robbed people for years, decades, and like murdered one of his singers and then denied the whole thing. It's just really weird. Yeah, he's totally KGB too. Anyway, so some of this is just tracking history of events, like because many of you knew these groups in like Iowa or Wisconsin. You didn't think that they traveled around the U.S. like the leaders of them did, or that they would go to other countries. They do. So it's important to know that, even just if it's like for yourself. So I'm just going through this. I was trying to figure out why people were so down over the last weekend. And there was like, I did my show on Saturday and was like, well, I'm happy. What's going on? And then I noticed that like Coachella was going on, and Coachella is not like very much fun. There's a lot of labor trafficking at it. A lot of people that are forced to go to it. There's a lot of weird cult behavior at it. I suppose for some of you, there's a weird feeling of longing to be at it, or even wondering what it is. It's a cult festival that was created by a bunch of different cult groups tied to the cult of ISIS. A lot of different people perform at it. I'm not saying they're good or bad, but there's a lot of murder or ritualistic behavior at it. I personally wouldn't want to be at it. I do know a number of people from nonprofits have gone to cover it as journalists, to take pictures at it. I mean, if you watch a performance from it or something, thought it looked fun, honestly, you probably saw the best part of it by getting a close-up view of some of these dancers instead of being at it. Because you'd be stuck in a crowd. It's just, ugh. But, so that's been going on the last 2 weekends. It'll be going on again this weekend. But there was also the fact there was a bunch of weird news that came out. I did see something really strange was the two performers, Addison Rae and Maddie Ziegler, were making fun of geishas at the show. That's kind of depressing. That kind of stuff comes from like Doug Fleming. That guy was around back in Iowa in the 80s and learned, like he used to follow Yoko Ono and some of the other women that were actual Japanese performers. I was trained by Yoko Ono back in the 80s in the arts and became a geisha, an artisan. And, the reality is that, it's like another era for me in my life because I also went to college, and then I went to college, and then I went to some more college, and I had a career in customer service and, communications and marketing and public relations, and even got to studying some law and ethics issues and policy, and then worked in healthcare. So it was like another life for me. But I did notice that he was making fun of the geishas at it. That's just like... And no, I don't think you should try to get more authentic Japanese performers at it. Like, that would be really mean to do to them. I'm actually really grateful that I don't have to perform at Coachella. I was saying I went perform at some other festival, but that's what I know specifically was created by the cult groups. Came out of the 80s, came out of the PCUSA, Russian FSB, like not a safe place, right? Just not a safe place. Not a safe place, right? Ooh, I have body fantasies. Ooh. Anyways, so I like spitzers and scents and sanitizers. Just kidding. So we're moving on. I'll try to be as funny as I can today, but I don't know. So let's see. Got to go through this. I have a source that went to Florence the Machine show, put a bunch of pictures out. Florence is actually the woman that I lived with at Culver Military Academy in 1994. She spent a lot of time dating with a Jordanian man who turned out to be an extremist and a Muslim extremist. I met another man at that time who I had started to date, and then because the issues ended up not dating, ended up crying. She had interfered with me even going with him to the final dance. They call it promenade, where the women would go with the men, and where men would wear military uniforms, women would dress up, and they did do this parade. The first class would do a parade. It was a summer military school. You worked your way up over the summers. I ended up not being able to go in at all because of her interference, and it became obvious that into the investigations when I was down in DC that she actually stole a bunch of my poetry materials. And the way she did it was sort of a Florence is a little trickier than yours. Um, as far as who turned her in, it was actually seriously the woman that had kidnapped me and taken me from my mom, and then wouldn't give me back and ultimately murder my mom. But she was one of Florence. Like Florence was one of her people. And a really nasty trafficker and possibly a man. But she's on tour. She's doing a lot of radio signaling, call signaling, sending out weird sex signals to people and making them act kind of crazy. So we're like, where is this weird funk coming from in the US right now? It's coming from her tour. I guess we'll all make it through the summer, right? Like, um, you know. But I did actually put one video together for Florence while I was down in the DC area, but her song is literally like no light, no bright eyes. That's literally a poem I wrote about Cersei screaming, yelling at me. She just stole it. But what I say was that she was better at it. She got me to read stuff to her, and then I had been so abused and was so desperate, which she knew, you know, for attention at the time, that all she'd do was sit there and tell me how talented I was. And she would just make recordings of me, and I didn't know it at the time. She was recording everything in her room at Culver Military Academy that summer. And just stole it. And, you know, I guess that's the problem with abuse and being a young woman. Like, I was only 14 at the time. She did other things too. Like, she broke rules at the school, went AWOL, like, refused to wear their uniforms, tried to get me in trouble. Psychopath. Definitely. And I don't know if she sings. Being that she's in, like, the JLo school, you know, a little better hiding it. But Russian FSB trained, like, I'm going to say, you know, probably not singing, more likely on a DAT system. Yeah. But I didn't think it was worth for going and getting all that footage for me and showing what was going on. So, it's kind of sad, though. Like, I mean, you want to think people, like, have something better to do, but, you know, it's easy to say, oh, it's narcissism and it's ego control, and I have their own cult, but you break it out of the fact that they're Russian FSB trained. It's like, no, it's just this screwed up military apparatus. And it really does cause me to question a lot of pop culture and what the rest of us are supposed to do with their lives. Because so many of the institutions that we put together turned out to not really exist. Or if they did, they were much more short-lived. And so for me, I think it's that our lives just have to be a lot more dynamic. You know, I got a lot of inspiration out of studying Shintoism as a young woman, young child even, and just focusing on the existence of life and being in it. But not the weird cult groups. Anyway, so, yeah, I mean, so it goes all the way back to 1984. It's important to note that, a lot of the clothing designs and material she was using actually looked like some stuff that I had made, like, decades ago. It's very weird. It's like she took them directly out of my design books I'd worked on that summer. So never really innovated. If you know, she doesn't have new material. It's because she was stealing it from me, and she was cut off. So she's probably pretty pissy. I don't know who else she might have gone after, you know, but just be aware she's a dumb labor trafficker. Not a whole lot of talent there. But, you know, because I haven't abused, all she did is be nice to me that summer and hang out. So, I do, dated Jordanian men who turn out to be extremists and Muslims. So cult of ISIS. I would definitely consider her to have narcissistic personality disorder. But yeah, you just have to remember that. And then, one thing I got about her that was really weird is you do the whole white party thing of the white bedding and stuff that's come out today, that you really can't have, like, totally white bedding. It doesn't work out. She used to tell women to get white bedding back in the 90s. Said she had it. It's like, well, I mean, I would assume she's a pedophile, a child sexual abuser, or definitely set women up to be murdered. I certainly wouldn't get into her trying to find to have an all-white bedroom. Like, that's, no. No. That's a bad idea. I should probably note that Katie Couric, who I interviewed like 20 years ago, was a nut that also wanted to have an all-white bedroom. And it's just strange because that's, like, how would you even get away with that with all these weird serial killers tied to the white party movement? Like, torture you to death for having a room like that. but it's because they're in it, so it doesn't matter for them. So I'm saying, like, you kind of have to know what other people in, what you can do and not to do for yourself. I personally wouldn't have all white bedding just because it gets dirty so easily. You know, it's very, very hard to keep clean. Let's see. Yeah, she talked about wanting, like 1994, talked about wanting me to work really hard on my albums. And then you look at what I just went through with being stalked over them. Might even been some of her people are trying to get at them. Definitely in the cult of ISIS. Um, yeah, it seems like a setup to just, I mean, when I don't have enough money to promote them, and it's not, finally realize the music industry isn't really that much of a moneymaker. It's kind of important to remember that because, like, I think personally, for any of you watching, I mean, if you want to make music, make music, but you just need to know how the industry actually functions. Like, most people who are in it have to spend a lot of their own money in it. And we've now come to this realization that Madonna has been robbing banks all over the U.S. and destroying the U.S. financial system for decades. So forget the whole, like, obfuscationist thing of saying she's a slut. Like, who cares if she puts her tits out there? She's robbing banks. Like, she's stealing people's retirement to have tours. Her big Brazilian show may have cost Brazil, like, their retirement fund, like, all the people there. So it's important to know that. Yeah, my source noted that the radio signals at her concert seem to be pushing people to be suicidal, which is really disturbing. So definitely stay away from Florence the Machine. Bizarrely, Doug Fleming said he hated her. He might have covered that one up the best. She comes to a line of why it appears to be a witch. Wants to appear to be a witch, appears to be a witch. I don't know if she is, but she's definitely using really weird military grade signals on people to, like, mess with them. So, yep. And, suicide signals going out across the U.S., weird sex signals, like, this is all, it's gross. What I noted is that there were some Japanese women in the program of me called Military Academy. I didn't know where they'd come from. And they used to try to guard me from her. In fact, one had tried to live with me. And then Florence actually talked me out of living with her and moving with her so she could steal music. And this Japanese woman had a breakdown over it. I couldn't understand until, like, decades later what was wrong. Like, I thought she was just having a really hard time, but she was upset because she felt like she had failed to help me. So it's like some of the stuff needs to be rectified in the sense that I didn't realize that the Japanese were trying to save me in that situation. And they were more than likely people who would, well, there were people who were directly tied to Yoko Ono. So she was trying to help me there. Couldn't see it, couldn't understand it. But we get it now, don't we? Don't we? We all get it now. Yeah. I don't know, maybe we should just call her a stupid, horny, weird idiot, but stay with the ooh. I would just note those weird signals are going out all over the U.S. right now from her concert. Let's change topics again and talk about Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell. So last week, a new footage of Democratic Representative Eric Swalwell came out of him kissing a woman at first in a hotel room. Is it surprising? No. Is it real? I don't know. He was planning to run for California governor. Now he can't. It doesn't matter, And he's had some good moments to be grandstanding, though, finally over the winter. Turned out to be a neocon that was trying to take advantage of the situation with. So, going back to what we talked about in previous shows, Pam Bondi, their neocons, were trying to create a situation to do a fake lawsuit through Booz Allen Hamilton, get a bunch of neocons from the Democratic Party elected, do Democratic supermajority. But the rest of us were too organized for that. The point is, you don't want a Democratic supermajority that's full of neocons or Republican supermajority that's full of neocons. You want, like, legitimate candidates. Not people who are falsely funded by some weird, like, pervert pack that lies and, instead of charging predators and making them serve time and restitution, just creates a false lawsuit that doesn't actually benefit any victims. These aren't actual, I don't think any of the people I've seen down there were actual victims. So, it's important to know that as of, like, Sunday, so also Tony Gonzalez of Texas, Republican, was also in trouble. So the result broke Sunday. Let's see, Representative Kana, Democrat, California, Bernie Zappa, Democrat from Washington, Representative Senator Mark Warner, Democrat, Virginia, Representative Mark Louder, Republican, New York, Representative Brian Donalds, a Republican out of Florida, all came out against Eric. as of last Sunday. Um, there's a lot that's come out of that situation that's really dangerous, I think. But he's also been keeping a Brazilian person as a nanny under the desk, paying her under the desk with campaign funds, so misappropriation of campaign funds, misallotment, broken immigration, labor laws, and his wife Brittany Swalwell has kept this person since 2022, so it could possibly be kept as a slave and not paid. Definitely breaking labor laws. Lots of questions there. Is this person being held against its will? The whole thing. It's kind of important to know that as of Sunday, April 12th, 2026, Eric Swalwell announced that he was no longer going to be running for governor of California. There was a woman who's come out that said that he had strangled her this week. Thank you by the shirt. I'm going to tell you really bluntly what I said about all this on Facebook. I said she better be going for charges and not asking for money, he or she, because I don't want to hear from anybody that, so many of us have been beat up and abused, myself included, are told we couldn't ask for money and we had to go for charges or in the government to do charges. So I'm just going to say right now, this person better not be trying to do a lawsuit to get money out of the situation and better be actually planning to get charges pressed, if anything, or just shut up about it. But, I'm not going to support somebody that comes out in this situation and then tries to get money when so many of us were told we couldn't have money for our situation or what happened to us. So, I need an update from, they would change topics again. I'm not saying I don't believe her. I'm not saying she isn't a victim. I'm saying that's actually how the system has to work, or the rest of us aren't going to be able to believe you. So, I haven't updated NetSpend. I was using the bank, but one thing I noticed was that I don't know if it was Endeavor Corporation that they had started the bank, because I realized later that the person who talked to me about it was M. Gartner, trying to be working for my ex, not ex, some of you know, the actor Chris Evans. I also was by the name David Barnes. What I was going to say about all this is that the bank is weird. It charges a lot of fees. There was a lawsuit. I can't tell if it's that or if it's the people I was running in Traverse City, but the card just hasn't worked as well over the past few years. The bank account hasn't. So it may just be the truth of the modern era is that none of us can use our bank accounts. I have to tell you, forever, you change banks all the time. It's just really frustrating. I told you about how I had a big account down in Charlottesville. I had $1,000 and it was just totally cleaned out. During the pandemic, still had another 1,000 stolen out of my PNC bank account when I was living in the Washington, D.C. area. During the pandemic, it's totally ridiculous. So, honey, I don't show anything fun on the odds and ends. Sean simply stated. I'm on OnlyFans at Deborah K, DEBORHKY. There's lots of fun pictures on there if you want to go on there and subscribe. I need to know, up here in northern Michigan, there's been an issue with the person most of you knew. Changing topics again. Amy Reynolds, known as the actress Katherine Heigl, from 2 decades ago, had a mom post with her Lynn Reynolds. Rachel Darrow, who became Charlize Theron. All I know is there was some kind of weird issue with them going back to an old strategy in Janesville, Wisconsin, and they used it in Traverse City last year, where they were trying to get people to hit walls again. A lot of you might remember the death of Tanya Runyon. It looks like that group, along with Jamie Lee Curtis, is the ones that set that up. But they're all men that pose as women and fund their place in the industry, Hollywood industry, with crime. But the main thing is that they're really into these weird car accidents with surges and parking lots, and especially drive-through surges. They've set some of this stuff up and had really nasty lawsuits as a result. I'm just trying to figure out why those are all free. These people are all free. It's not like our current Department of Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy doesn't know about all that. He was aware of all this in James, Wisconsin 20, 30 years ago, 90s. He was around for it, and he's not doing anything to stop it. Why not prosecute them? So, yeah, not really very satisfactory there. And that's for Northern Border Patrol to know as well, because nobody needs a bunch of dumb anarchists, weird car accidents. And believe me, that group gets literally everybody else blamed for their behavior with those. Like cities, towns, states, individuals, like, weird false lawsuits as a result. It's just very, very strange. I think I had a section here I was gonna do. I'm gonna skip it. Somebody's trying to get me to talk about Holly. Otherwise known as Raymond Rasmussen again. I'm like, I'm fucking done with this topic. I don't want to hear about it anymore. Okay. You have annoyed me too much with all this. Don't forget that I actually was a professional driver during the pandemic and was cleared by the federal government to drive. And I was the only female driver for Lyft in the Washington, D.C. area. In fact, I think I was the only person who was doing any kind of on-call driving that was female. There was only 4 other men driving at the time. So, I've got my own series and history of a driver. A really serious good one. Yeah, I need to congratulate David Yaroslav. A lot of you may have known him. He just got a job with the Department of Justice, so good for him. Yeah. I need to put in this. This is really funny. Change the topic again. Political compass memes. Weird. Katy Perry, Justin Trudeau using drugs and dancing. Justin Bieber's Coachella set. It's a weird set of news items following them. Somebody made fun of them and put the quote with it. They're so perfect for each other, it actually makes me emotional. Both being failures of liberalism who peaked in 2013, right? Do you ever feel like, even I feel like visiting these topics, it's just like, what era are we in? Because where music is at today is mostly like electronica or country. It's with a lot of singers that you don't see listed in like weird Facebook ads or pop magazines or Us Weekly. So there's almost something about it that just feels like weirdly time warped and like very boomery. But that's how Russia and Chinese stuff is. It's all like stuck. The freshest we get is from like 2017. So, like, they don't even know who the top entertainers that actually make money are in the U.S. Karol G was a major performer at Coachella, and she's supposed to be the hot new Hispanic performer. She probably is actually a Hispanic performer, by the way. She's not new. She's been around for like 7 to 10 years. So, it's just weird. But I was talking to somebody about it early this week, and it's like most of the stuff that's presented is like hip current pop is from like the 2010s. Like, it's old. Or it's like 20 years old. Even like Blackpink came out in the 2010s, like late 2010s, but still, we're in 2026. Like, so for those of you who feel like you're in a time warp, you're like, Deborah, why are you referencing these people? Well, I reference the groups specifically, like, for example, Katy Perry and this recent thing with Justin Trudeau, because Katy Perry is a criminal. She's part of a Jalisco. And, we're getting a delay. Did it catch up? I'm just waiting to make sure the feed actually caught up. There it goes. So in Jalisco, and then had the bizarre thing. One thing I'll say about Katy Perry is she's got some kind of weird deal to turn in a number of different terrorists. So she got Nicole Scherzinger. As you know, Nicole Scherzinger is the one that ran around Washington, D.C. in like the 2000s. Like, the guy many of you knew was like Jay Nelson and I, who was also performer Paul, were out one night, like stopped. Because Nicole is actually male and has a boobs and penis. Was like running around screaming, exposes boobs and penis. This is Nicole Scherzinger. It was this weird, like, spritzy thing that, like, was signaling that was, like, setting off bombs. It was just a totally unreported terrorist attack that we stopped. There was a bunch of police there at the time, but, I mean, it was really weird because I ended up literally telling, like, Jay was like, what do you do? I'm like, I'm going to distract her. And then just tell the cops what you could do, just run at her like a football player from the side and pick her up so she can't keep doing this weird crap signaling. So that's what he did. And I mean, he wasn't dressed up like RuPaul at the time. He was dressed up like a normal man, but I'm sorry, I didn't put that right. I mean, he was just in plain clothes, like not performance clothes. So, no, not in costume. And I don't know if there's such a thing as a normal man anymore. But you know what I mean. So Again, Katy Perry's been doing that this week, and now she's got this thing with Anna Kendrick, who is apparently also like Sam Sorbo, which is Kevin Sorbo's wife. So yeah, has a dual like alias life there, pretends to be Anna Kendrick, and also doesn't sing, and has a weird fake teeth. Um, Apparently going on and on about how she was like booby fucked by Katy Perry's finger, because Anna's actually into women. So I don't know what's going on with the whole Kevin Sorbo relationship. It's not my business, but he's with J Lo, like the majority of the time. So that relationship was like under wraps probably until like last year. Of course, most of you are like, Deborah, why do you care about J Lo? I don't care about J Lo. Sorry, did you like lose me there? Um, I got way. There it goes. So what I'm saying is, let's just move this over here to the side. So Katy Perry, part of Ellie School, really good at, or do I praise her? I don't know. I think she's got a plan through her attorney to turn a bunch of people. So she turned Nicole Scherzinger, caught her with her little like signal that Nicole does. As explaining, got in trouble down in the DC in the 2000s for second terrorist attack, like by exposing her breasts and penis. And of course, this attack was never covered in mainstream news, at least not like that. It's just that there were some fires downtown. That was kind of it. Being an event that I ended up, because we were with her at the time that she set us off in a culture. So myself, this other person goes by the name Jane Nelson, but it happens to also be the former Paul, like literally, like I distracted her. He ran her from the side of telling the police what he was going to do and picked her up like a linebacker and carried her off. Or he off, because Nicole is actually male. And so the big weirdo thing this week is that Katie's got this bizarre story with Anna Kendrick, who actually turned out to be Sam Sorbo, which is Kevin Sorbo's wife, who turned out to be, I'm talking about how she's been like booby titty fucked by Katy Perry's fingers or something bizarre. The thing about Anna Kendrick, who actually happens to also be Sam Sorbo, is that she's gay. So I don't understand the relationship with Kevin Sorbo works, or Sorbo. He used to play Hercules like 20, 30 years ago. But it came out last year that he's actually in a relationship with J-Lo. And you're probably like, Deborah, why do we cover these topics? Well, because J-Lo is a criminal. These other people are all tied in with the crime and theft, and like Katy Perry being in a Jalisco, I mean, she's turning in people that are part of some kind of a network of either criminals or terrorists. And so it's kind of important to follow along and note that when it happens. As far as relevance, like peak pop culture stuff, no, they were all done in like the 2010s or 2000s or even 90s in a lot of cases, right? So we're going to move on now to a different topic. It's sort of related, sort of not. Talking about people who need to be done. Madonna has announced a Confessions on a Dance Floor Part 2 album 2 decades later. I have to note that her deal with the Catholic Church to pay them off ended under Pope Benedict and Francis, so those two put a stop to it. It's unfortunate that Pope John Paul let her do that. But after Pope Benedict and then Francis came in, that agreement came to a close, and she has not been able to reestablish it under Pope Leo. So a lot of people don't understand, like, there are all these weird fights with the Catholic Church, and it turned out to be a way of signaling for her to do, like, papal payments and whatnot. And then it turned out the Catholic Church was in trouble because of how much money she was stealing. And of course, you know, the child abuse cases and everything else. So, like, even I think I got confused as a younger kid with the Jesus stuff with her. I was like, oh, there's matter for, like, being against the KKK. Or now you look back at the videos and go, oh, this person actually liked the KKK. Never mind. She wasn't trying to support the rest of us and getting away from the KKK. She is the KKK. I didn't say either. I gotta find out that she didn't. And she uses other people to perform in her shows as her for dancers, stuff like that. So, talk about their most recent topic with the quote-unquote war in Israel, Iran, Lebanon. There was footage of John Stafford that came out. I don't know how many of you knew him in Shovel Court in the 2000s. The feed is a little delayed. I'm gonna put this down here almost. I need to cool this off. It's warm enough to not be able to film the car without the phone getting overheated. La 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 la. Okay. So, it's funny. Some guy just like rode by his bike and I think put in like a pulse attack because he didn't want to keep making a show. It's really dumb. But anyways, so contractor war, Labatt, CIC, Accenture, Booz Allen Hamilton, running this Iran-Israel war. I don't think anything has ever made Israel like more discredited than this quote-unquote war. Um, Even like 20 years ago, a lot of us would have thought like Iran, Iraq were legitimate. But with the amount of money wasted and deaths and like the amount of people trafficked, and the fact that the wars haven't really benefited the U.S. at all, they just seem wasteless. Like I'm totally on the side of the current Pope Leo of just not supporting it. And I'm really sick of the way the media is actually covering the current Pope because they're acting like he's some kind of a jerk who doesn't support peace. And you have to remember that this conflict is like nothing but an invented contraption of China and Russia to make money. Really. So I don't, and I saw enough labor trafficking of myself and other people as a result. I personally worked through a labor trafficking scheme that was run by the Russian FSB here in the U.S. to make us all provide material for pop singers who were criminals and quote unquote Hollywood performers that actually funded like Booz Allen Hamilton ran, and so their contractors ran. CICI took part of it. It was all about funding like Russian and Chinese crap, you know. So it's like it's kind of important to know all of that because I don't like U.S. defense. Great, let's have a great strong defense, but contractors loosely tied to the U.S. government being in Iran, Israel, Lebanon, a bizarre conflict all over the place. Like trophy movies, like I just don't buy any of it, and I don't want to support it. I don't want to pay for it. So when gas prices go down, stocks went up today. I don't even have stocks. I'm sure they made some other people happy. That kind of thing. I also need to remind some of you that Becky Thornton, those of you who knew her at Luther College, actually went ahead and married Senator John Thune. And that's the one that's actually was found to be from Iran, also Russian, because the groups share ancestry. Family came here, was supposed to have been removed and never was. She learned Chinese CCP systems. She claimed when she was at Luther College she was a victim because people made Swim Fan, and then it was all about her, and it was all how she was abused, and then literally no one trusted her because she made such a big deal about it. The rest of us were actually being openly raped. She's like, oh, this movie's about me. It's like, maybe it's not. Actually, I tried it later. I think it was. But the problem is you don't really know that, and it isn't a good idea to like tell yourself that if a film's being made about you, unfortunately, because I'm going to say maybe it really wasn't in the end. The film was set up and made for her to complain about. And you'd have to have known who she actually was in the greater context, because she came out of the oligarchy of Russia, ultimately. But they do that. Hollywood, the Russian FSB does weird crap like that with people. It runs these weird obfuscationist campaigns where you think, what? Why are you even talking to me about this? Like, I don't even know this person. The whole thing's just weird. And then they play the victim with it, right? So that's playing the victim. Instead of just saying the movie wasn't blowing the whole thing off, she would go to me or other people who were actually from the U.S. and complain about it being made and say we were responsible. And I didn't even have a job at the company at the time, instead of going to the actual people at Luther College who were clearly employed at Endeavor Corp, which would be, Caroline Silver Lake, which funds Endeavor Corp now, and then Virginia by the name Jackie Wilkie, who actually got Charlie Kirk killed last. So, you're gonna go to the people actually responsible. But unfortunately, those will also be the people who are like supposed to be on her team. She want to confront it. It's just really, really weird story that's never quite ended, I guess. And I only know that because like Greg Thornton, who went to the school at the time and had dated her, is still like on it. And apparently, the threats made to Kim Gills, who she hung out with, who became Shonda Rhimes, stole material from me. Like they're all still like blaming each other and playing the blame game for something from 2001. So, the year of 9/11. But there's a definite delay today. This is a very delayed show. Anyway, so yeah, just looking at this. Let's skip all this. Right. So, and then Becky Thornton's dad had turned out to be an Iranian man who blew up mailboxes back in Wisconsin and worked for the U.S. Postal Service and blew up mailboxes in the 90s. If you remember that story. Yeah, so I think that guy's free. Iranian. And so for me, when you tie back to the modern context, you think, if you're so interested in ending these conflicts and protecting the U.S. as a presidency of Donald Trump's presidency, that's what this is about. Why are you engaging in a weird strip mining operation in the Middle East for $37 trillion in minerals and resources instead of dealing with the actual Iranian problem in the U.S.? Because we have more than enough Iranian coal groups and weirdos here to go after for national security and safety. But, being in the Middle East wastes a lot of money and time. It just doesn't make any sense. And I wouldn't support any of it because I just don't want to be involved in any of it. I don't want to support it. I want to pay for it. Beat me out of it. So, change the topic again. I got to address the issue with former Lieutenant Governor Justin Fairfax of the Democratic Party in Virginia, age 47, supposed to have had a bright future. He was married to Dr. Serena Fairfax, 49. They lived in the suburb of Annandale, Virginia. The story is that it was a suicide based on the fact that there had been sexual assault allegations. They were getting divorced. His career had been ended. Why wouldn't you consider that he was murdered and she was as well? That somebody just took advantage of that situation to murder them. Because, I don't really trust the current governor of Virginia, Guthrie. She looks too much like Megan Colley out of the FSB. And Virginia's been having a lot of reports that there's really severe problems with this governor. I'm pretty sure she's Megan Colley. Thank God they have term limits. But I think she would have had him killed. Or killed him herself. She's only used to break into the State Department systems and worked with Booz Allen Hamilton and would hit people. She got hits. With a laser system. I think she killed him. I don't know what the exact motivation was but that person is a psychopath that inspired the film Megan. Megan. The horror film's Megan. Yeah. With the Warner Brothers rides and costume parties and exhibits. Or I don't know if it was rides, but they definitely have Megan events for the Halloween at Warner Brothers. There's Universal. Sorry. You know what I'm talking about. Megan, the movie Megan. I need to know that, just a funny story, kind of funny story. So, back when I lived in Janesville, Wisconsin, there was many used Russian GRU signals to confuse a woman in Janesville, Wisconsin in the 90s into buying a deck. We should joke about this. The irony of the story is that she blew too much money and thought she had purchased his sexual services, and he was part of what became Endeavor Corporation. So, Russian GRU making his way to Hollywood, working in sale, and the joke is that she thought she was purchasing a dick, not a deck. But she decided she didn't want any of it. In other words, no one likes a salesman or woman who comes on too strong with sex signals for sales. That's really all anybody can say about it. But they're the ones that have been doing that in the sales world. So it's another thing that was investigated, which is down in Washington, D.C. here. It's what is going on with these weird signals that make people crazy and buy too much? And they're pissed off later. And what is it with so many of us who because I'll resist those, other people will. And, later, and unfortunately, Booz Allen Hamilton has been known to use them. So is LeBlanc, TFC, Accenture, Integrated Marketing. Very bad idea. Because it'll piss off customers. They go, I'm billing me those stupid signals. People are savvy. It's important that the woman did eventually get her money back. She filed on it. It was at one of the home improvement stores. I don't know which one in Janesville, Wisconsin, the 90s. But needless to say, those were the kind of situations that so many of us actually investigated at the time that I was in the D.C. area, the 20 years in Virginia. I spent studying different scenarios. A lot of people were. Like I said, nobody likes a salesman or a salesman that comes on too strong with weird sex signals to sell things. Also, everyone's going to think you're trying to sell your dick and not a deck. Try to only sell things that people actually never want and only amounts they want. Same thing with anything else in customer service, though. But really, I can't think of any quicker way to drive off customers than that. Just tick them off. So, especially today. Let us go walketh. Aroundeth, he blinketh, and talketh in old, talketh in bad Shakespeare language that is not corrupteth. Hold on, I gotta watch what I'm doing here, though. So yeah, super super beautiful day. Northern Michigan, like on Lake Michigan. Just walkie. Yeah, it's super pretty. There's still like snow and some ice on the water. You kind of see, but it's very very warm today. Like I could just walk around just like this. I could have put on my contact lenses and sunglasses. It'd be perfect. I'm not quite sure I could go like a bikini top. I probably could have done that if I felt like it, but I'm not in a mood today. But yes, more Simply Yoga with Deborah to come on OnlyFans at Deborah K DeborahKay. And there'll be a few Furby episodes on YouTube coming up. But you know, mostly you're really about the freshest stuff is gonna be on OnlyFans at Deborah K DeborahKay. And there will be more Simply Stayed Oz and to come. Thank you. Have a good one. Bye.